Happy Thursday, everybody, and just a bit of warning that there won't be any London After Midnight on Friday anymore, because Friday is now Doctor Who night. Tonight's topic concerns bronies, and I suppose my fundamental question is, what is people's problem? I'm not a brony myself. I've never seen the show. Well, not a single whole episode. But the bronies I know seem like cool people. But I'm going to start off with Coqui, who I think would be okay with me describing as a card-carrying brony himself. What does it mean to be a brony?
I still find that question hilarious. It's a fandom, not like some sort of new age movement. In short, a brony is someone who enjoys the My Little Pony fandom and I guess considers themselves outside of what was originally the target demographic of young girls. The name comes from actually 4chan, of all places. People from the B forum called themselves Bro, and that's kind of where the fandom sort of sparked. A lot of people were posting My Little Pony stuff. There was a lot of rage in the 4chan thing. 4chan banned ponies for a while, and that's when they spread to the rest of the internet, and consequently, bronies.
Oh, so it's partly an internet phenomenon in a sense that it kind of sparked them from the web world. Well, judging by, I've seen some negative things that some people. I think that if it's a question of breaking down gender binaries, this is the boys' toy section, this is the girls' toy section. If it means, or this is a boys' show, this is a girls' show, I see that as ultimately a positive thing for everybody. I think people are entitled to like what they like. I see misandry in the objections that I've seen. One internet person that I won't name posted, somebody I've since removed from Facebook for a number of reasons, or a number of instances of misandry. But saying of the documentary A Brony Tale, it's not about the fandom, it's about them, it's all about them. With that sort of flavour of presumptions about male ego and male attitudes, and also saying that it was taking something away from girls and young women, which I don't see how it is. That's like saying that it's like saying a black Doctor Who fan is taking Doctor Who away from white people. It doesn't really make any sense. I've heard some very specific objections to the brony thing, which were generalizing. It was like saying bronies do this, bronies do that, because somebody has at some point. That's not a reason to criticize an entire movement. There's probably a lot more that I think there is a feeling that, and I don't want to sound too much like an MRA, but the thing about MRAs is you don't feed them. And when they act as if women feminists want to take something away from men, when I think that men, bearing in mind most sexism is double sexism, men are getting something now that we don't normally get, and gender equality it does go both ways, and feminism should benefit everybody. If we believe in feminism at all, whatever brand, I know it's a very nebulous term, this should include man feels, this should include romance. These are positive things not to object to. And if men are allowed to be this and that and do this and that, all the better. And actually it's breaking down these barriers for mutual benefit. And I don't know of any legitimate objections to simply being a brony. Does that make sense?
I understand. Yeah, think we'd all wholeheartedly agree that things typically reserved for girls shouldn't be reserved for just girls. If I were to take some of the objections seriously, you mentioned like some people act like bronies are taking stuff away from girls or taking stuff away from children. There are a couple of objections that I think should be brought to light that may be actual problems. Some people, and granted, I don't really interact with the brony community that much. I just like the show. But from what I've heard is that there's been a lot of adult fan art, which is not in itself a problem, that there's a lot of, adult stuff of My Little Pony characters or whatever. Or maybe it is, but the real problem is what I mean to say is that a lot of times they are on sites that children may go to, children fans of My Little Pony, which, I can understand. I can see that as sort of pushing aside what was originally the target demographic or otherwise just not being inclusive of, younger children and younger girls. Though I will say that there isn't a single fandom that I've encountered that doesn't produce sexual artwork. I guess it's because the demographics are, there's a lot of men who are into this. It seems as if men are doing this to children, but I mean, it's not like minors don't produce a lot of this fan work. That being said, obviously, it's really messed up. All of the My Little Pony sexual fan art I've encountered has been on furry sites, and, that's furries express themselves, through art oftentimes. Not all furry is sexual, just like not all My Little Pony fan art is sexual. But, yeah. Yeah?
Just, while you were talking, I Googled My Little Pony images. Within the first page, there is a picture of all the ponies scantily dressed, carrying machine guns. Within the first 10 pictures, and I've only gone through 15 pictures just by googling but that's what I'm saying. You said you didn't know there was an issue with the art, and as a mom, I don't have an issue if it's on an adult site, but as a mom, I don't want my son to be able to put My Little Pony into Google and then see that.
Yeah.
Because I have the safety settings on. You know what I mean? I have the safety settings on for when he uses it. So it's not like I don't have safe search on or something.
Right.
And I'm not complaining. I'm just saying I think there's a little bit more. It's a little more accessible than I think you realized.
Right.
Okay. No, I didn't say that it wasn't happening. That is an objection. I said I personally don't have too much experience with that because I don't go on too many My Little Pony sites. Whenever I encountered it, was on a furry site. But yeah, it's a legitimate objection. Obviously, anyone who's Googling My Little Pony can find some, questionable fan art with sexual or violent content. And so that I do understand the objections. Obviously, don't put fan art where children... Don't put that kind of fan art where children would go looking for it. I mean to say is that some of these objections aren't entirely, just bigots responding. And I suppose the Brony documentaries, a lot of them have referred to them as being exclusionary, as in not including the female fans, the adult female fans. And, there's some also... people talking about not including the trans fans, and actually I think the founder of BronyCon is actually a trans woman. Again, I'm not too involved with the community, but, if these people aren't getting as highlighted as, the cis men, then I think that's worth noting.
Cokie, have you ever heard of them making comments about the adult females who love this show? Because I've never heard anybody mock an adult woman for liking this. So why do you think it's an exclusively man thing? Like, why do you think
Well,
they're
the
targeting
term,
men?
of course, the term brony in itself kind of implies that. So are you a brony if you're a woman?
No. But what I'm saying, the question I'm asking is, so we've labeled men bronies. Why aren't we vilifying women who like this? It's a kid's show. Why aren't we saying, well, women, you shouldn't be watching this. You're not a kid. Like, I think that's a valid question. Why are we only giving flack to men?
I would say that when it comes to the attacks on the matter, particularly some of the more, like, problematic or, downright vile homophobic attacks, men have been taking the brunt of it, but there are a lot of female bronies, at least. The movement is called brony because people on the B-board and 4chan are called bros. It's, an accident of history that it has a masculine title. But I will say that there was a term floating around, Pegasisters, for female fans of My Little Pony, but I don't think too many people use it unless, they genuinely want to specify, oh yeah, I'm not a male brony. As to why they're not being vilified, because people just aren't as invested into, women liking girly things, yeah, it has something of a stigma, but not to the same degree. Like an adult woman could have a bedroom full of stuffed animals and it doesn't draw as much attention. That's just...
Can I just point out that when you think of sexual predators, you don't tend to think of women, even though women can and have been sexual predators. The most readily available image that comes to mind for, I'm guessing, the average person is that of a man. So I believe that is particularly sexist because it's targeting men as being potentially predatory towards the children or things that the children like.
That's actually something that's come up. It's mentioned in the article that one of the subjects of this documentary, people don't see a man in the quote-unquote girls section of, wherever you're going to buy a My Little Pony figure or something, and necessarily think it's a dad buying it for his daughter because he's on his own. They don't necessarily think, oh, a man likes My Little Pony, that's fine. Some people, if they don't assume that it's somebody with mental problems, because shock horror, an adult can like a kid's show. Bearing in mind, Doctor Who used to be considered a kid's show. It was on at 5:15, and there were, it was sort of dismissed by a lot of people in those days. Back in the day, it was like, oh, Doctor Who, that was a kid's show. But it was a boys' kid's show, But this, you're a man in the My Little Pony section. Some people's mind goes to paedophile. That's something that's come up in the article.
But I suppose the factor is also that male sexuality is just seen as something, as a public hazard, which, obviously it's a sexist attitude. That definitely contributes to a lot of the hostility that bronies experience, yeah.
Yeah, well, gender and sexuality unfortunately come into this. When I first read the article, I thought, why are you even bothering to mention that 84% of bronies are straight?
One of my big issues, I think, with this article in general is it makes a huge impact on the gender roles. And now I do have a son, like I've mentioned before, and he is 7, and he likes things like My Little Pony. He plays a video game of My Littlest Pet Shop. He likes the Barbie Legos because it's the only Lego set that has purple Legos. And he's been teased and, called names and things like that for enjoying these. And I've told him over and over again that there's no such thing as boy things and there's no such thing as just girl things. There are things that we like, there are things we enjoy. And I think there's nothing wrong with it as long as we're not hurting anybody else or ourselves in the process of enjoying an activity. So that's kind of my 2 cents about it. I think it's unfair that it puts this kind of pressure on a child that young to try and conform to a societal standard of what the manly boy should be. So that's just kind of my thoughts on it. I think it takes the joy out of being a kid to put such a stigma on something.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid in the 80s, I remember being in the video shop, and I was a big fan of, you'll know this, of course, because it's French, Asterix and Obelix.
Ah, yes, I love that.
And I was trying to convince this girl, oh yeah, you should rent an Asterix and Obelix video. And the dad, I'm not hating on the dad, sort of looked at the cover and said, nah, that's a boys thing. Because Asterix and Obelix is for boys. And so she misses out on Asterix and Obelix, even though it's awesome, because you've got to have boy things and girl things. And it's just, apart from anything else, it's just a bit tiresome, isn't it? To think in those kind of terms. And ultimately give kids freedom. But yeah, and anyone out there who doesn't know Asterix and Obelix, it's comic books, it's animations, it's live action, or the live action, obviously, you'll notice it's dubbed. But they have Gérard Depardieu as Obelix, and it's awesome.
It's available as well in book form, in French, because it is a series that is French, as well as you can get all the movies in French, and you can get kids' books in French if your child is or yourself is interested in that. You can.
The comic books are available in a variety of languages.
Yeah.
Yes, when my ability to read French was at its strongest was when I was a kid, because I'd collect Asterix and Obelix in different languages, and I could actually more or less read the comic books in the original French. I couldn't now, not as well, but anyway, Queenie, your thoughts on this issue?
One of the reasons why I will not stand for misandry is that it is the sister child of misogyny, because the same people who would tell a little girl that she can't be good at math or she can't like science are the same kind of people who would tell a little boy that he can't like My Little Pony or the purple Lego bricks. One of the reasons why I'm a humanist rather than a feminist is because of the kind of double standards that you'll see here. Men and boys who like My Little Pony are bullied and ostracized just because they happen to like a thing that is deemed beyond them liking. You know, it's like, oh, you're not supposed to like this thing. You're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to do that. The same people who are decrying that they're being held down by someone else are doing the exact same thing, and it makes me want to fucking puke. Because let me tell you, as a kid growing up scared and confused and not knowing what the fuck was going on, I had an internet connection, and some of the people who I made the most meaningful exchanges of my life with were men guys my age, who were going through the same sort of conflicts that I was going through. And I found more solidarity with them than I did from any other woman I had ever met at that time. And that meant more to me than you could possibly imagine. I have talked to male rape victims. I have talked to guys who've been bullied because they were gay or they liked something that was considered gay. And this is just such a powerful part of this experience that I've had, is that they were getting the same sort of shit that I was getting for liking the things that we were prospectively not supposed to like. So I just fucking can't stand it. I can't stand misandry any more than I can stand misogyny. If you're going to tell the little boy that he can't like My Little Pony, you might as well tell the little girl she can't be good at math either. Because it is the same fucking thing. It is the same fucking thing, and it is disgraceful. And if you're saying you're fighting for equality, but you're only fighting for certain people's equality, then you're being an asshole.
Bravo, that could not have been better said.
And indeed, I actually had these thoughts, or thoughts of a similar vein a while back when assessing complaints that, feminist critiques of various shows, including Sherlock. And one of the objections was bromance, as if bromance is automatically a bad thing. And of course, with the Bronies and My Little Pony, the slogan is "Friendship is magical," and it's being sensitive and it's valuing friendship. And if you're a man, a British man of my generation, particularly with the kind of dad that I had, that moment when Sherlock seems to be about to die, and one way or another, Sherlock Holmes is saying goodbye to his best friend, John Watson, and a single tear rolls down his cheek. It was like, oh my God, Sherlock Holmes, like one of the most iconic male heroes ever, just cried. Sherlock Holmes cried, saying goodbye to his best friend. Sherlock Holmes can cry? And it was like a while after I realized that to someone like me, it feels like permission. It feels like you needed permission. Like, gentlemen, you may show emotion. You may value friendship. You may, and like, why is bromance you can't say, you're not trying to deprive men of something if you, like, condemn bromance as if bromance means bros before hoes, as if bromance is somehow this bad thing, when actually, again, it's freedom and equality for everybody. So yeah, this is a very true, very real thing in our culture, and unless we come to kind of realize that. Another thing I'll mention is if you're my father's generation, it wasn't just that because obviously once upon a time there was a stigma against women smoking. Smoking was considered this male thing. Obviously nowadays we know that smoking is bad for you. You shouldn't really do it, whatever your sexual identity. Not that it stops us, but it became acceptable for women to smoke. But there was a period when it wasn't acceptable for a man not to smoke. And my dad, growing up with Kojak, of course, because the actor Telly Savalas hated smoking, they gave the character a lollipop, because in those days, I think it was the 60s that Kojak was on, so my dad would have more or less grown up with it, or he was a teenager, or who was a baby boomer. You would look at Kojak, who was a detective, was a particularly macho role, I suppose, a male cop. He can't not smoke. If he doesn't smoke, is he some kind of Nancy? But give him a lollipop, it implies that he's trying to quit smoking. He was a real manly man, but he smoked too much. Maybe doctor said, So, you've actually got to come up with an excuse for a man not doing a manly thing like smoking. And that shows the duality that once you say, although smoking is a slightly bad example because it's not a great thing to do, but, it's when you say people are equal, so yeah, women can smoke as well, you've also got to say men don't have to if they don't want to, which is kind of a microcosm for the whole thing, really.
I think that's also a really good point.
Thank you, and
we have
Cokie.
Yeah. I was just going to say, we have this huge pressure on men to be manly. I was in a toy store the other day with my boyfriend. It was actually like a grocery store, but it had a toy section, and we heard a couple aisles over, this kid was like crying or something because he was upset, and his dad is just like, why are you crying? Why are you crying? I'm not going to talk to you until you stop crying. And I was kind of like, wow, that is how they do it. It's like, you're just not allowed to cry. And this kid was, like, maybe he was, like, I think he was, like, 5 or something. And it's like, we're starting him really young. You're not allowed to cry, man.
Well, I've had complete strangers, come up and, my son, when he was, like, 3, would have a tantrum. And they'd come up and be like, oh, make him man up, And I'm thinking, he's 3. You man up. I don't know you. You don't know me. Go away.
Yeah.
So I think there's just a lot of pressure put on men, and to not to be that manly, man.
The very phrase "man up" is itself an example of double sexism and how sexism tends to be. At school, I was told that, actually there was a girl who actually was a bit of a bully, but you wouldn't call it bullying because she was a girl and I was a boy, but was sort of like, because we all did home economics, and she was like, her attitude was like boys doing home economics, because no boy could actually cook as well as a woman, as if there aren't male chefs or anything.
Yeah.
And I also remember a science teacher telling me that I couldn't be a feminist. Only women can be feminists.
There are still feminists that would hold, this is a woman's struggle, men can only identify as pro-feminist, which, is a weird semantic distinction, but,
Yeah. I was sorry.
I was just gonna say, you were saying what you had experienced. With home economics, I experienced the opposite. I was the first female in my high school to be allowed to take shop because I fought tooth and nail, and they still made me wear the damn kilt while I did shop.
I actually got bullied out of shop class by the shop teacher.
So
we don't actually have this over here, but I think it's when you throw stuff, basically, isn't it? But yeah, there are so many examples.
Shop class is like repairing cars and...
mine
was like a woodworking class.
No, mine I was working on cars, and I was rotating tires, fixing carburetors, I was the first girl that they let in to do that.
Okay. I know what this is. We call this CDT, Crafts Design Technology.
Okay.
But yeah, there are so many examples of this and how... But I suppose the long and the short of it is it cuts both ways. I think there's actually like a fork in the road here where there's 2 potential topics that this could lead to. One of which I would say is I forget what the actual term would be. Hang on a second. Okay, so I think that this topic has led to 2 big potential new topics for another show. So what I'm going to do is just throw the floor open for any closing remarks. Cokie?
Sexism is also awful. Friendship is magic.
And Midnight Goddess?
Don't let other people's opinions sway your path, and just be true to who you are.
Excellent. And Queenie?
Love yourself.
Aha, I do.
Yay.
Frequently.
Ooh.
Sorry, that was so lame, I just couldn't resist it. But yes. Absolutely. And I hope everybody has enjoyed this week's London After Midnight. And tune in tomorrow for Doctor Who Fridays. And, well, other than that, it is a good night from Cokie, a good night from Midnight Goddess, a good night from SchizophrenicQueen, and a good night from me.